megahertz, how they messed us up with the megahertz back after the
Okay,
second
1, 2, 3, you're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way, everyone. Tonight we got a great show for you. We got a lot of people to talk with tonight, and I want to thank each and every one of them for coming. Diane Martino, thank you for coming. Lucky Stone, thank you for being here. And Dalbar Suchi, thank you for stopping in tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored.
Yeah, we got to have a little girl power here to balance it all out, you know.
Feminine energy.
That's right, because, you know, no matter how we look at it, we're always looking at it through a guy's perspective. And sometimes, you know, and I like that. I like, you know, I know we get more accomplished when we got a girl somewhere out there. Like, you know, usually it's like 3. And that makes it pretty good. If you know, but you got to have a girl, or you got to have 2 girls and a boy. You can, you know, if you just have all boys or all girls or whatever, they're thinking on one side, left brain, right brain. Who knows?
It's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, because you know, from a girl's perspective, you're going to look at things a lot different.
Yeah, because you know, even sociologically, women in collectives tend to behave hedonically, whereas men tend to behave agonically. In other words, they'll use aggression, you know, and competition versus cooperation and cooperation. You know.
Interesting.
Absolutely. And as by our title, it says making the noise, listening to the world. What does this mean? And Scotty Boy's thinking, I'm not deaf. But anyway, he's trying to figure it out. What it's all about is what is going on in the world. Every day, it seems like I get a step closer. And then I realize that it's all this noise. And then I go outside and it's quiet. Things are good. You know, I had a really peaceful day today and things are good. And then I turned on the news, or I listen to somebody talking, and they're all making noise. Comes noise. The world is in chaos. We're doing it to ourselves. You know, somebody is running the propaganda to make us go in fear or something. And there's so much out there, and I think we should talk a little bit about some of this stuff, because it is kind of, you know, interesting the way they manipulate us through a thing called belief. And if I can make you believe in something, and then I can maybe get control of you. And it goes along. We were just talking about hypnotism, or, you know, being hypnotized or regressing and stuff. We'll get into that in a second. But belief, if I can make you believe something, you will do what I want you to do because you believe it now. And what is believing? To consider to be true or honest.
Who is it that always says belief is the enemy of truth?
Yeah, I don't know.
I forget who says that, but that's a good saying.
Yes. And to accept the word or evidence of, you know, but do they have evidence? To accept something as true or genuine or real, to have a firm, wholehearted religious conviction or persuasion to regard the existence of God as fact. You know, so with all of that, you have what you call belief. And what do you make of all this?
I have to say something that came right away.
Yes.
Like, nobody does the research anymore, like you, Robert, and I know Cliff High, right? Reading these old books. These old books are telling you one thing, and the new history has been rewritten to totally confuse us.
Yes.
So, and people don't even do the research. They just like watch it, they hear it, which is the programming, and they believe it. So I just know, like, from listening to Cliff High, like, he gets the old books, and I was like, oh, you know, and you know, Cliff, you've watched Cliff High, and it's different, but I think even that is falsified. So, yeah, I think we need to go inward. I was just talking to a friend of mine who does light language. I was on the phone with her before, and just talking about, like, listening, like, I was talking about teaching her how to meditate. and just going inward to get that, like, you know, like when your stomach turns when you meet somebody and you're like, you know, or you're like, oh, you know, so it's that inner knowing I think we've come away from because we've been so programmed.
I agree with that. And Delabore, you are a study of books and
Oh,
old
yeah.
books.
Yeah,
And
I have an extensive collection of books. As a matter of fact, I don't even know how many there are, but I'm estimating about 50,000 because it took 1.5 shipping containers just to get them to Europe. So, you know,
My God.
I used to run a bookstore, by the way, a used bookstore.
Which
So,
one?
it was online. It was 100% online in Elmwood Park when I lived in Elmwood Park.
Oh, wow.
So, it was one of the first online ones. As a matter of fact, I sold on mostly on eBooks and eBay. So that was
Wow.
my venue.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm a big book fanatic myself, and I do ascribe a lot more importance to them because that's information that cannot be retroactively changed. You know, a lot of people accept the news at face value with the, or even the alternative stuff at face value because they assume that just because it's alternative to the mainstream media that it must be true if the media is telling us lies. Except it's a lot more subtle than that because for the most part the media distracts us with stuff that might be controversial but not necessarily important. Whereas the alternative gets it wrong sometimes as well because I've been looking into, say, the flat Earth thing, and you know, I discovered some things that are even more interesting than what the alternative or the flat Earth side is talking about in terms of like distances on planet Earth and stuff. Like, for example, discovered that the distance between New York and Los Angeles is exactly the same, plus or minus 1 kilometer, as the distance between Sydney and Perth. Yet the flight from Perth to Sydney takes an hour less, a whole hour less than the distance between New York or Newark and Los Angeles. Okay, so how do you explain that?
wow, yeah.
And you know, other like, so that's just what the first thing that comes to mind because I was looking into that today and talking about it with my friend in Australia. So you know, people tend to accept these things at face value for the simple reason that there's so much information coming at us that no one of us has the time or the energy to actually look up every single thing and see if it's true or not true. You know, if these claims are believable or not believable. You know, but usually if somebody makes a claim that's difficult to believe, the burden of proof should be on them. You know, so I prefer to call myself a media agnostic, where you know, I'm not going to believe it until I actually see actual proof, you know. And if they tell me, you know, there's been a mass shooting over here, but I don't see any
Oh, I know.
dead
Yeah.
bodies or anything like that, you know, how do I know that it's true? How do I know that it actually happened?
Yeah.
Well,
I concur.
Yeah.
well, when there's all those mass shootings or something, remember there was a shooting in the Florida school here a couple years back, and some kid ran in there. Right away, they were outside interviewing people or all the kids. And I remember the one girl saying, well, it can't be that guy because he was standing right next to me while the guy was in there shooting or whatever. And she says, you know, and she says, well, she knows the guy. I mean, there was something fishy there. And then, of course, they made up the story. He was just walking down the street and the cops seen him and, you know, and picked him up. And I'm thinking, does that sound like somebody who did that was just casually walking down the street and the cop just says, oh, look, there he is. You know, where'd the gun go? Where'd all the stuff go? Oh, he threw it in the garbage can, and you know, no.
And invariably, anytime there's a big stink like that, whether it was Waco or Sandy Hook, you know, one of the common characteristics is they always like wind up raising the place to the ground. You know, in the end, whether it was Waco, Ruby Ridge, or any of these places, they always like tear it down, you know, get rid of it, or the World Trade Center.
Yeah, that's one of those.
You know, it's interesting. Have you ever listened to Ole Demigard?
Yes, the shoes. Yeah.
The shoes, right? The shoes, magenta, the color magenta. But what's also interesting is that I watch him on Michael Jaco a lot, and he was talking about you know, the fact that like a lot of the shootings that just recently happened, like a week before they had drills in the same school, and that's where the picture,
Yeah.
so like now I don't believe anything.
Yeah. Exactly. To assume that it's a hoax until it's proven otherwise, because they're the ones making the extraordinary claim, so the burden of proof really is on them. I'm not under the burden of proof to prove that I believe any of this.
Yeah, I mean, and what they did to, what's that guy that said Sandy Hook was whatever, and he was forced to pay all this money. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's all just big charades, just to keep us away from the fact that we have reptilians trying to take over our us.
Well, see, I don't necessarily agree with that, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that Alex Jones talks about. But I do kind of feel sorry for him having to pay like nearly $1 billion in fines for
I don't
what?
think I don't think that really happened. I don't even think that's true.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah,
See, and that's
exactly.
the thing, that number is just so fanatical. It was
Do
$900
you know what
billion.
a billion is? Okay, can you first of all, do you own $1 million of anything? I don't care what it is, like bottle caps or
Oh,
pennies or.
yeah.
Now imagine 1,000 times that, $1 billion of something. Like, what the hell's that?
Yeah. Well, and it's like people don't know what $1 trillion is. And I said, you take a $1 bill, stack it up from here to the moon, and there's $1 trillion.
Yeah,
Not $100 bill, a $1 bill.
yeah.
And that's just hard to, even fanatically imagine, figuring that the moon's 270,000 miles away. But this
Or so
is
they say.
this is how we fool people. This is how about the belief. And it's like people talk about dinosaurs. Oh, dinosaurs lived millions and millions of years ago. And then that stops you in your tracks, because you go, I really know, I just don't understand what 1 million years is. More or less 65 million years ago. So you must be right.
Sure, because even our human history of people who are still alive at this point, like my grandmother, she's 100 years old. She was born in 1923. That's only 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And she remembers what her grandmother told her. So let's say you go back 200 years, but that's still nowhere near, I don't know, 1 million years.
Are you ready for this? Vegamore is a vegan hair wellness brand.
Sorry, I found the Danyon Brinkley. I couldn't find. I've been looking for it while we're talking.
Would you-
but I
would
found
you
it.
like
It's
to
on YouTube? I'm going to put the link in the chat for you guys.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. I was gonna say, you get something on that you want to share, it's fine with me. Let's see. Oh, yeah, but this goes with everything we believe, starting with the biggest conspiracy ever. And that is, anyone want to take a guess?
Flat Earth, because look at it this
it
way.
is too.
They're censoring it so unbelievably on YouTube, that you can't find any of the pro Flat Earth information out there unless you actually know these people by name, like, I don't know, David Weiss, Jaron Campanello, Tim Osman, or people like that. And even those people get, like, Tim Osman has been kicked off YouTube like 160 times or something like that. For what? For talking about Flat Earth? What is it about this topic that they find so disconcerting, and why is it so controversial? There's false equivalency, in some of these anti-Flat Earthers trying to equivocate it with, Nazis, but that's fake. That's 99.9% of Flat Earthers don't believe in Nazism or any of that shit. Just the fact that you could find maybe one who does, that's not statistically significant,
Yeah.
Adopted Jesus Christ. I mean, Jesus Christ, supposedly he exists, but there's real no record.
Yeah, exactly. The only physical record is like some tomb that says Joshua, son of Joseph. I'll bet you, okay, if you were to find a living man named Joshua today, find out how many of those Joshua guys have a father named Joseph. I'm sure there's like thousands of them. you know,
Billions,
millions,
billions.
billions.
Yes.
And
yes.
even if you were to corroborate it, well, his grandfather's name was Theodore. You know, I'm sure you could find men, thousands of men whose name was Joshua. His father's name was Joseph, and his grandfather's name is Theodore. You know, that's not
Yeah.
indicative of anything.
Well, and that's the thing, is the coincidences. Just like we were talking about just before the show, how it's such a small world that you
Totally.
lived on the same street as Diane, or a street over, a couple streets down, you know, and now my birthday is one day after yours, Diane. How quinkadink is that? Lucky, I'm sure there's something that connects us all too, you know, because
Where
you're
do you
over
live,
there.
Lucky?
I live in Massachusetts.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm free. I'm free of all this stuff. I'm free of all the coincidence there.
Well, but there might be something else we come up with. But the point is there's all this stuff. What's the chances of that?
Yeah.
Out of millions of people, millions and millions and millions of people that live out there.
I lived at 3 different addresses in Garfield, New Jersey, all around that same area. I lived in the Garfield Housing Authority projects
That's where I live.
on Shore Street. Yes,
That's
my
where I
address
live.
was used to be 249 Shore Street.
Oh, I'm 46. I was right behind you.
Oh,
46, 246 is right in front of me. Like if
I was
I look
249,
out this window, it's 246
Oh no.
that way. Somewhere,
Wow.
those are the 200s in front of me.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So that's where I
Wow.
live in the housing authority.
Oh my God.
Ain't that something? You guys could have bumped into each other.
Then
and
I
No,
used
I
to live
just
on-
moved there. I've only been here for like 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
whatever.
Then I used
I
to
used
live on Main Street, which back when in the 70s, when they used to have the bus station there. So on the opposite corner from the bus station, which used to be the Kennedy Club. And then I lived on Wood Street for
I know
7
what
years.
is around the corner. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a small street between Semele and Plotterville.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know
So,
exactly.
and
Yeah. Right
now
by
I
the
live-
Firehouse Restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, now I literally live like what, 6,000 miles away or something in Germany, southwestern Germany.
Yeah, I think we're all where we're supposed to be to hold the energy down, because I think we have a lot of astrological stuff is happening. The energy is just phenomenal, but I think it's all for the good that's coming. So that's how I read the energy. But I think the more what you were talking about, you all were talking about, like, I think we're here. Like Robert said, we came through the birth canal and we're just here to help what's going on the planet now. And like, none of this is real,
Mhm.
even though we live in the 3D world.
Well,
Yeah.
see,
I can't say that a lot of places.
the real reason behind my move, you could say, was all the events that happened in November 17, 1989, when the wall came down and when communism got overturned in my own country. Because the plan was from the very beginning not to stay in the United States, but only to use the United States as a shelter from communism, which it served remarkably well. I'm grateful to the United States for having provided me with that opportunity and that shelter, and most importantly, the fact that I was able to learn English. Where as soon as I could, I came back. I moved back to Czechoslovakia at that time, and you could say that I was very successful in what I did. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Mhm.
I put that link in the chat for you guys for Daniel Brinkley.
Yep,
It was-
I copied it and I put it in the thing. So it's all good. It's all taken care of. We put one in there for Daniel, Daniel Brinkley.
Daniel Brinkley on
yeah,
David
oh, yeah.
Rodriguez.
And then I got the unsolved his website too. So it's got a website, believe it or not.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. Unsolved
And
mystery, something like
Since
that.
we were talking about the whole Jesus myth, I think the best authority on that would be Joseph Atwill, Caesar's Messiah.
Mm.
I've seen
Yes.
quite a few interviews with him, and Wayne Steiger, since we were talking about him, he also did a 6-part series on that book.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
own the book. It's actually behind me somewhere on a pile of stuff behind me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically Christianity was conceived as a control mechanism that was first tested on the Jews, which were their most rebellious, Rome's most rebellious province. And when they saw that it worked, they decided to like roll it out throughout their empire. And
Yeah.
that's how it infiltrated Europe.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Out of all those books that you have, I got two things actually. On all those books you have, you know, how many of them talk about Jesus in any other aspect except for the Bible?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and then with the flat earth, this is my second point. We were talking about flat earth. Well, the thing is, you were talking about the trip from one place to another and how come it takes longer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
See, this is where the flat earth people get their evidence. You know, why does it
Mhm.
take, you know, if this goes this way and this goes this way and this is 1,000 miles and this is 1,000 miles, how come the trip from here to here takes
Yeah.
2 hours and
You
then the
know,
trip from here to here takes 4 hours? This is my second point. We were talking about, you
Yeah.
know,
And
how
it's
is
like if you just look at flight times and flight paths, it's a whole other bizarre story because, you know, for you could argue, to any logical person, if you have an origin and a destination both above the both in the northern hemisphere, does that flight ever have to cross the equator? No. But how come most southern destinations arrived at from a southern origin have to cross the equator? Why is it that you have to go like up and cross the equator, you know, going from, let's say, Perth to Santiago de Chile, you know?
Yeah.
Because on that, there was a flight that took them like 8 hours, and it was, what's that Australian guy's name? Not Cliff High, Max Egan. Yeah. He
Oh,
did a live stream for the whole 8 hours that clearly showed him, and he had a compass with them that clearly showed him going northwest and then southwest. When on the globe, even if you take a globe and connect it with a rubber band, he should have been going west the whole time.
yes.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, because if you here, I'm going to pull up one. You guys keep talking for a second. I'm going to pull up
That's
this
like
Or-
Brad Olson. Brad Olson's talked about there's like certain stuff missing, you know, with the Antarctica stuff, and that there's a part of the world we haven't seen yet, and like why, same thing you're talking about.
Yeah, or gyroscopes. Why do gyroscopes behave the way that they behave? You know, if we're constantly spinning, if you spin a gyroscope that's like freely suspended on a gimbal, you know, in an XYZ axis, that should start tilting after a while, but it doesn't. And if you take a gyroscope on a plane, you know, that plane is supposedly following the arc, the curvature of the Earth, 8 inches per mile squared. But it doesn't do that. The gyroscope stays spinning like in that same plane. You know, I'm taking into account the pitch and the yaw of the airplane itself. But no, it does not make sense. The evidence does not add up. And, you know, even some of the basic laws of physics do not make any sense whatsoever. Like since we're talking about gyroscopes, how is it that if you take a given weight of gyroscope in iron, let's say an iron wheel, and you spin it around, it exhibits that gyroscopic effect? But how come it doesn't work with water? If you take a garden hose and you coil it up, you have a weight of water that's greater than like an iron disc or an iron gyroscope, and you pump water through that at the highest speed, it's not going to exhibit that gyroscopic tendency to like defy gravity like a gyroscope does.
Yeah. So here's your flat Earth thing. If this was the way Earth is actually at, then you know, when you would have to fly, you would fly, like you said. If I can
And exactly that. Oh, there's also a book called like
draw here on it.
Something like 50 emergency landings, where there was a flight going from Australia to Los Angeles, and I'm sorry, from Korea to Los Angeles,
Okay.
Yes.
and
Korea would
they
be
made an
here.
emergency flight they made an emergency stop because of a patient who had a heart attack in Alaska. Now,
Yeah,
on a
this-
globe map, it doesn't make sense, but on the flat Earth map, it's in a straight line.
Yeah. So here's Alaska up here. And you got to go where? From where?
From Korea.
And Korea is like right there, right here.
Yeah.
So that would be your straight line.
Yeah,
Straight line right here. Boom, boom, boom.
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense because like you said, there isn't really much past the equator here. And
Mhm.
anybody, it seems, that's flying, like you said, if you're in Brazil and you're going to fly, you're going to go this way, or you're going to fly from, say, you're going to take a trip from Mexico and you're going to go to Europe. They always go to say New
New
York,
York.
and then they take the trip across, which is a
And
straight line.
I've flown New York to Europe many times, and a lot of those flights stop in Iceland.
Yeah, look at that. Iceland would be
And
right.
Iceland's
right
right
about
on the,
there.
yeah,
Right about
Iceland
on
is
that
right
line.
there. That's that little dot. Yeah.
Yeah, be right in here somewhere.
No,
Or
it's right next to it, right
right
there.
here,
Yeah.
right there. Okay, right there. And yeah, okay. So there's Iceland, and yeah, it's crazy how that works, isn't it?
Totally
I mean,
crazy.
and if you want to, like it says, this in a way makes sense. But if you made the globe round, you would say, I'm going to fly from here and I'm going this way. I'm following this line of longitude.
Mhm.
Isn't this
Yeah.
longitude? Yeah. Anyway, you'd be following this line, which is curved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
see that's kind of a short distance if you look at it relatively, but that also explains, why do flights from Prague to Sydney always stop over in Korea? And Korea, that's not where you had originally drawn it. That's like closer to the southern tip of Japan.
Okay. Oh, right here.
Yeah, that's Korea. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I knew it was over this. It's funny looking at it on the map this way. Then
And
Sydney is over here, isn't it?
yes.
Or is it
And
on
so
this side?
again,
Sydney's
that's
over
at
here.
that's in a straight line, and that's the halfway point.
So you'd fly that way.
Yeah.
Well, that
And
makes
Prague is like right in the center of Europe.
And then you'd fly from there to the center of Europe, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like
straight
when
line.
I went from Egypt, I flew from
Egypt is here.
Cairo. No, it's a bit more to the right, a bit more to the, yes.
Here. Okay. Sorry.
When I flew from Egypt to Prague from Cairo airport, I passed the city of Brno on the right, and I used to live in Brno. That's how and even the pilot pointed it out, and you could clearly see the characteristic shape of the city. I'm like, why is it on the right? Because you would expect that on a globe Earth, you would be approaching Prague from the south and not from the southwest or west in this case, but it only makes sense on the flat Earth map.
This is a flat earth map, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Because
Yeah.
I've heard other people talk about how we live in our world is more like a vortex. It's long, but it's also a vortex. I don't know. This is interesting to me. I find this interesting because I don't know what I don't. It doesn't come into my awareness like whatever it is, but I like listening to it because I don't think it's round or flat. So this is cool.
Yeah,
Well,
it doesn't matter really what it is. The main
Right.
question is, the main issue here is that it's not what they say it is.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and then the
Yeah.
question, well, it's just like we said before. Who has the time and the energy and the willpower to go and research this stuff? They keep us occupied so badly that you don't have time for this. You
Mhm.
don't have time to go out and look at maps and fly the globe and map it out and say, hey, it is flat.
Well, and
you know.
in the case of Antarctica, you're not even allowed to. And no private person is allowed to land in Antarctica. They'll have U.S. Navy vessels escort you off, under threat of violence. You can't land in Antarctica. There was a millionaire recently who became a flat earther and who tried to land in Antarctica, and he was unable to.
Hmm.
He took his yacht there and he got turned back by the Navy.
Oh wow. Yeah, they want people escorted in. They say, oh, you can go to Antarctica and you can book a trip. It costs $25,000 or something crazy like that.
Mhm.
And then you get there and then, but then they watch you.
They take you there
take
in
you-
an airplane with
Yes.
no windows. With no windows. In a military C-130 transport plane.
Fred Olson is a great one too. He's been up to Antarctica, and his stories are really quite interesting. I like his, so I haven't read any of his books. I'm not a huge reader. I'd rather paint, but yeah, I'm ready for another book. So I'm talking tonight is helping me figure out, but it's just very interesting. Like none of it makes any sense. But when you talk to regular people, because I consider us extraordinary, open-minded, they just like, well, who cares? Like nobody really, because they keep us so dumbed down with the food and the energy and the waves, and people just don't care. That's the answer
Yeah,
you get. I don't care. Like what do you care?
But at the same time, why is there such an international presence of 56 different countries down in Antarctica, including Czech Republic itself? Why does Czech Republic have an Antarctic base? Like what on earth, literally, could they be researching there that they can't research somewhere else? A lot cheaper, I should add, because they don't have to.
Who is researching there?
Yeah, and well, in my case, in the case of Czech Republic, it's the Mendel University of Brno is funding and operating an Antarctic research station
No,
there.
I don't mean that. I mean, are they reptilian? Are they?
We have no way of finding out because
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. They could be reptilians. They could be.
I mean, this is true. Oh, we got a good audience here, and Pamela Jean says, yes, there's aliens living underground. Pamela has been known to have some experiences, put it that way. She says evolved insect aliens live under Desperation Island. So there are insect.
What's weird? I mean, when I was operating my bookstore, I sold quite a bit of books to Antarctica, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I've shipped books not only to Antarctica, but to a North Pole research station in Yellowknife or someplace like that. And it's weird, the kind of books that they would buy down there. It was mostly like metaphysics, old metaphysics books like I don't know, Horace Greeley, stuff like that.
They wanted them out of circulation, probably.
No, who knows?
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
don't know.
But
There's
they have
thousands of
sporadic
copies.
internet down there, so they can only get on for like an hour or two a day, allegedly, because the alleged satellites or satelloons, as flat earthers call them, don't reach that far all day. They've also never filmed the polar midday sun or midnight sun down in Antarctica. They've never been able to film that. Like 24 consecutive hours in a live stream, 24 consecutive hours of either sun or night.
Wow.
Interesting.
So that's kind of weird. Why shouldn't they? Should be able to.
It should be a piece of cake. I mean, if it's so false, this whole flat Earth thing, then you should be able to debunk it in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
but they can't.
They can't. Well, here's a good one. Now you're a researcher of books. Lucky, I think you read quite a bit too, so you should know. And we've all had these things, but here's a thing. Researching everything about the inner Earth. We're talking about aliens and all that. Who knows? But inner Earth. I've read a lot of the Indian myths and legends, and a lot of the creation stories, and it literally talks a lot about them being underground and coming up out of the earth on a root stump or on a tree branch, or the insect people bringing them up or taking them down to the ground to save them from whatever was on top of the world. And then we have all these stories, Journey to the Center of the Earth. There's how many books of that, and they are all real similar. Why is that? The stories of cities like Shangri-La, and then Argartha, all underground cities that have light and plants and trees and animals that doesn't exist here.
Yeah,
Why?
well,
Why?
it's weird because for example, in the ancient Slavic mythology, we had a god of the underworld, and that was Veles. And it's also interesting that demons in Czech mythology, demons come from underground.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they live underground, and they come out of underground openings like caves, wells, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well,
And I just got a thought, like, who knows if maybe they're not demons and we've been told that, so we don't go there, or, because I think there's the good and the evil that,
Well,
so
and they look like the classical devil. They have hoofed feet and horns, but they're humanoids otherwise, and a tail. So, in that sense, it's very, very reminiscent of what the rest of the world imagines as a devil, even though, there's no biblical description of what a devil looks like, except a couple of passages that say that they look like a being of light. They look like anything from a charming young man, because Satan is known as the deceiver. So why would he make himself look ugly, right?
Lucky, you're a good guy to ask on this. What's your thoughts on you communicate more with the spirits than probably anybody. What's their looks? Do they inhabit? We know they inhabit statues, and those are the spirits. Are they afraid of things? Are they afraid of demons, or are they demons? Or do they? What do they like to be called? I never thought of that. What do they think they are?
The thing with the spirits, to me, it's like talking about animals in the forest. All different shapes and sizes. There's nothing specific. And a demon is just something people describe as something that they're afraid of. I have met some negative entities, but they weren't really negative as much as they were trying to protect a certain area. And the best way of protection is to be scary. Now that's what they learned. But I went to there in a positive energy, and they're like, I talked to them, and they're like, yeah, well, I'm here to protect, and the best of protection is to scare. I'm like, yeah, okay, but maybe there's a better way. And for them, all they know, for as long as they've been protecting this area, because they are created. A lot of these spirits, humans create themselves for a specific job. And they're very simple, and they know one job, and whatever they can do to do it. Very simple, like a dog. You train a dog to do a certain thing, it'll do its job really well. But to change the job is kind of tough for a dog. So some spirits are like that. But for higher spirits, like angels and stuff like that, for people who passed on, usually people who passed on, they have a job. They're here for a reason. They want to stay. They enjoy it. Who knows what the reason behind it? But there's to put a description of spirits, it's like describing a bird versus a mouse. It's like they're different, but they both live in the forest. They're the same. Yeah, that's how to think.
I guess appearance isn't necessarily a defining thing, especially given the fact that in common depictions, like the good god in Slavic mythology was Svarog, aka Radagast. He's depicted also as having horns, but he's wearing like a bull's head, and this is what he looks like. And he's carrying like an axe and holding a cornucopia, symbolizing bountifulness or bountiful harvest.
Hey, I want to ask Lucky, like, what do you think of like, we're talking about spirits and stuff, like, I feel like there's interdimensionals, like the spirits could be interdimensionals. What do you think about that, Lucky?
Again, you're talking about many different entities that are
Dimensions?
interdimensionals. My worst ones are the shadow beings.
Okay.
They're ones that I can't interact with. They are so beyond me, but those are interdimensional beings, and those are negative. I think that every spirit has a positive and negative face. I think that's the thing. Like demons and angels, I think they're just two faces of the same being, just show different things. But these shadow beings, They're just there to cause pain. They're there to cause fear. They feed off fear. They feed off pain. They feed off anger. They feed off sadness, and whatever they can do. And the funny thing about the shadow beings is the bigger they are, the weaker they are. It's the small ones that you got to watch out for. And that's hard to explain to people because you see a big, 20-foot shadow being. It's like, oh my God, it's so scary. But it's that big because it wants as much fear from you as possible because it feeds off of it. While the
Because
little
it
one,
needs food.
yeah. Oh yeah, these shadow beings need food, which is fear.
That
fear and
I believe and I understand. Yeah,
Look,
totally.
Yeah.
Speaking
it's
of
also
fear, this is where the definition of fear: an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. Like you were saying, an instant of an emotion, a state of marked by this emotion. We profound reverence and awesome, especially towards God, of course. Alarm, danger, like you were saying, they're doing these things to protect, to be afraid of, expect alarm, reverence, frightened, and just FYI. Not
interesting that in the Bible the appearance of angels is also marked by fear, because if you recall, I forget which exact incident that was, but an angel appears to some guy and he says, "Don't be afraid of me, don't be afraid of me." Yeah, and the same thing happened to me in a dream where I dreamt about an angel, and he said, like, "Don't be afraid of me, don't be afraid of me."
Well, look
Yeah,
what happened to Paramahansa Yogananda. Like I have the yoga thing, but I think it was him. Yeah, it was him. It was either him or Vivekananda, and he wanted to see the light, and he wanted to see God, and like what, and all of a sudden he saw it, and he was crying for his mother. He was so terrified, and it was the goodness that was supposed to come, but it was so overwhelming. He also was in fear.
Yeah, and he was like one of these guru guys.
Yeah.
I started reading his book a little bit and I never got through it. But yeah, he was quite famous over that. But if he couldn't handle it,
right?
What's an average guy like me gonna do?
Or
Yeah.
Get so scared I piss my pants and run for cover. I mean, I think I'm really brave, but am I? I mean, I still have that one concern that everybody else does. We all fear for our lives. We fear for a lot of things, who isn't afraid of something? We're all afraid of something somewhere along the
Even
line.
if you're not afraid of death, you're still afraid of suffering.
Yeah, nobody wants to suffer.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, the way you can experience something like that vicariously would be maybe through psychedelics. Because that combines like the whole hero's journey thing in with the dark night of the soul, which is one of the techniques of enlightenment. But there's questions about whether or not that's genuine enlightenment or just conveyor belt enlightenment. Because back in the day, ayahuasca ceremonies were like a rare thing to come by. Nobody even knew about it. And then like in the late 80s, it just exploded and they were doing like conveyor belt ceremonies in the jungle, like $200 a pop.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how it's all changed? Now it's like, ooh, let's go do that. And 100 years ago, nobody knew. It was people in the jungles, literally. I mean, I read stories about the Indians, in my for my show and stuff, and they all talked about, well, they're going to have a battle, and they're going to go into the spirit world. They're going to take whatever they got to do into their little hut and have their sweat lodge going, and or sit up on top of a mountain, and they're going to do their thing. And they're going to get some kind of inspiration from the other side, or a vision of what's going to happen, who might die, or if they were going to win or if they were going to lose, kind of thing.
But then, you have to also put that into the proper context. If these jungle people were so attuned with the spirit world and so advanced in that particular regard, how come they didn't become the teachers of this world? And how come their philosophy wasn't as successful in spreading as, say, theosophy or the New Age movement in general? How come?
Because of religion.
It got
Remember Christian-
subsumed by the New Age movement, more like.
Yeah, religion came in, Christianity, mostly, and they knocked off all of those people. You know, thousands of records of the Aztecs. They just went through and burned them. You know, I
True.
read all about that. They went through like a wildfire, and that was their big thing, to go through, destroy all the records, all the
Mhm.
religion, get them all converted over to Christianity, and then rule with an iron fist through religion.
Yeah, and now speaking of the Aztecs, we only have like the only surviving documents are like 12 scrolls that have managed to survive, and that's it.
Yep. The Popol Vuh.
The Popol Vuh being notable among them, yeah.
Yeah.
And even that what little we know about their ancient history is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's what I've also heard, that under the Vatican are the, are treasures from Atlantis, like they're actually whole, like, you know, so to think of all these things, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know, but at least we're aware that there's a possibility that we have artifacts, that's the word.
Mhm.
We have artifacts from Atlantis that the I don't know what to call those people, but you know, that those things are hidden from us,
Yeah.
and that's where our free energy is and all that stuff.
Well,
Well,
see,
yeah.
getting back to the Aztecs, I mean, they deserve a lot more investigation than you know might meet the eye, because they had a very advanced system of mathematics, and especially their calendar. I mean, they had a calendar that consisted of 20 cycles of 819 days. Okay, now, and in that 20 times 819 day cycle, Mercury goes around once. Venus makes the same appearance in the sky 5 times, Saturn exactly 6 times, Jupiter 19 times, and Mars 20 times.
Hmm.
In other words, that it reaches the same exact point on the horizon at that same exact local time. So, you know, how do you explain that? You
That
know,
they knew
and
that.
yeah, they knew that. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
then the question is, did they have that technology given to them, or that given, or did they study it so much that they figured it out when this, you know, why did they put so much effort into studying the stars when they didn't even have, like, you know, pretty much the wheel, and they're still Stone Age people? They couldn't they could make gold into statues, but they couldn't make iron into knives and spears.
Well, I would dispute the fact that they didn't know the wheel. They must have known the wheel, because all ancient civilizations knew about the wheel, because pi is incorporated into almost every pyramid. And the way
Yeah.
you do that is by measuring out a wheel of like a set diameter. Let's say you call that 1 meter. Well,
Mhm.
the circumference of that wheel, if you use a wheel as a measuring device, is automatically going to be 3.14 units or pi units. So they must have known about it. And plus, you know, various cart tracks that are embedded in like igneous rocks in France
Mhm.
indicate the fact that the wheel's been known about for literally millions of years. You know,
Mhm.
how else did those tracks get made in igneous rock?
Yeah. Well,
They could reproduce the pyramids now if they tried, which is
No.
mind-boggling. At the World's Fair, how many, when it happened, they had free energy back then. They've kept from us. Remember, like, I forget, I'm bad at details, but the World's Fair back in the 1900, early
No,
19.
yeah, it would have been 1892 World's Fair.
Right, they
1892,
ran,
yeah.
it was free energy, and all of a sudden now we don't have it.
Well, yeah, because back then they were trying to develop something that we've intentionally forgotten about and covered up, and that's telluric energy. Where in one episode, Wayne Steiger did cover telluric energy, where he did his own experiments. All you got to do is put in a voltmeter, take a regular voltmeter, and put the ends into the ground. If the ground is like moist enough, and you're going to get about 1/10 of a volt. Now,
Yeah.
you might not think 1/10 of a volt is a lot, but if you put in like hundreds and thousands of wires like that and hook them up in parallel and series, in the right way to get a usable voltage and current, you can power anything.
Yeah, put it to a transformer,
Well, no, you can't put it
and
through a transformer
couldn't you?
because only
Couldn't you?
AC can be put through a transformer.
Okay, well, you could
That's
convert, I guess
DC.
you could convert it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Anyway. I know, the thing is they had this stuff. They have this stuff, but they couldn't put a meter on it if everybody could get it for free,
That's
Mhm.
right.
and then they couldn't charge us, which means they couldn't keep us under control, which means places like, New York, who's banning, what is it, gas stoves and wood stoves
Oh,
and then saying, and California saying, we're going to get rid of, gas powered weed eaters and lawnmowers and cars and diesel trucks and even diesel trains. Go figure.
Wow.
And how we get it? We're going to have battery powered trains.
it's bad enough that the army is supposed to go like all electric vehicles by 2030, like electric tanks and
That's all just to get people. I think it's just to wake people up to how
Mhm.
ridiculous this is.
yeah.
The big problem of all electric stuff is it's cobalt. And to mine cobalt in Africa takes slavery.
Yeah.
In order
Yeah.
for these electric cars are decimating Africa. They're destroying China for the lithium mines.
Mhm.
We're destroying the earth by these electric cars. These electric cars are not a panacea. And then of course, when those batteries die, those cars cannot have the batteries replaced because it's too expensive. So they're brought to the junkyard to rot and poison the land there. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
the big problem. I'm a big environmentalist. I'm about picking up and recycling and doing all those good stuff. Recycling is another thing that's it's a joke, but I want the earth to be clean. But the way to keep the earth clean is for these high efficiency vehicles. I mean, well, we just bought a used car for my wife. It's getting it's getting like 30, 35 miles to the gallon. Well, my car, which is a few years younger, is getting like 25. It's amazing. We can improve the gas mileage of these cars,
Mhm. I
but
totally
electric
agree.
cars are now the solution. No.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Well, they might be the solution in the United States where you have radically lower electricity costs than you do here in Europe, where we pay about 50 cents a kilowatt, whereas you guys pay like 5 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah.
So that's a bit different economics, but I totally agree with what you said. They are not the panacea simply because of the elements involved in making them, and it's generally inefficient. Like the most efficient car I ever owned was a Citroen AX. That's a car not available in the United States, and that got me 100 kilometers and 3.5 liters. So, and 100 kilometers, that's 61 miles, and 3.5 liters is about 1 gallon. So
Jeez.
61 miles to the gallon. And it was at that time the most fuel efficient car, made it from London to Lisbon on 1 tank of gas. So if they could make a gas car that gets 61 miles to the gallon, why can't they do that to all the cars, right?
You're right.
Well,
There's something better than gas out there, and hopefully we'll live to see it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, gas is expensive too.
Well, I had a Geo Metro with the little 3-cylinder in it, and I used to get 50 miles a gallon with that thing. But I talked to a guy one day, and he was doing car stuff, and he was with Motor Trend or something like that when I worked at the ranch, and he was a guest, and he was saying, you got those little snub-nosed cars. I forget what they're called. They're real little bitty tiny things. But anyway, and he says,
the smart
car, yeah, whatever. Yeah. And he says, you think those things would get better gas mileage? Yeah, maybe someday I'll get one of those. Mine gets 50 miles a gallon. He says, keep your car. He says, they have to add extra weight with all the stuff. He says, that car don't get anywhere near gas mileage you're getting. And he says, they had to discontinue your car because there wasn't enough crash resistance and there wasn't airbags. And by the time they got putting all this stuff in your car, he says, then they had to make it a 4-cylinder and give them more power. And then the gas mileage went down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh.
Exactly.
I just think we need to look within and keep focused on what we all do. Everybody here in the chat, and just not fall for, not like you've all been saying, like none of it makes sense, and question everything, but listen to yourself, like meditate and, and feed your body good things, and just don't fall for the crap that's not organic to us, like crystals and organic food and clean water and fresh air, and know that
Mhm.
we're really powerful. We are the we're the supreme, I can't think of the words, like we've got the technology in us, and they're
Mhm.
trying to quelch us. So I think, everybody that's listening or that listens to this, like, know that you're really much more powerful than anybody's letting on to let you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, and anybody can eat a more healthy diet just by eliminating all the crap, like all the ready-made foods, all that stuff. That's all loaded with preservatives. That's not good for you, generally speaking.
And then you
Yeah.
hear your own inner voice. You hear like your guide. So like I personally feel like my guide is me from the future. That's what I've always felt. And
Mhm.
like, even if I'm in the kitchen, like, don't do that, you're going to cut your finger, and then if I don't listen, I might cut my finger, but I listen.
Well,
So
see, in the United States, it's almost entirely impossible to like get off sugar because almost every food, even salami over there, contains sugar, like
Mhm.
high fructose corn syrup. And that's demented, putting sugar into everything. One of the things that the only real diet you could say that I maintain is I eat a lot of garlic, 3 cloves a day, and I do not consume any sugar whatsoever. I don't even consume fruit. So and I managed to do that by just eating mostly like meat and cheese.
yeah, and I'm a vegetarian, and that works for me. And I think I
Mhm.
used to be very like when I first started yoga like 25 years ago, like very like people should not, and now I'm like everybody's different. And like if it works for you, we're all like was it you, Robert, were saying we're all from different soul families. So we all need different
Mhm.
things. We could be
Or,
from, you know,
we're from the same one, and that's why we're all getting together. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But you were talking about being a vegetarian. I learned something. Leonardo da Vinci.
oh
You've
my God, I
heard.
can't believe you said that, because I had this conversation with my friend before that I was Leonardo da Vinci, and she said, oh my God, she goes, a channeler told her she was, because I know the essences we could all be. So I can't believe you said that.
Wow. And
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci was a vegetarian by choice. Believe it or not, I was reading about him, and it said that he would buy birds and let them loose, give them their freedom, because he was against animal cruelty. But he's so far ahead of his time. He invented a helicopter type machine, and I forget what he called it, but it almost was something, a flapper copter or something like that. But it almost had the same name. I'm just like, what was he seeing the future, or was he 500 years ahead of himself? I
Mhm.
mean, he was he was a cadaver guy, got all the dead bodies and dissected them up and drew things of the human body, uh, you know, way ahead of his time, when people wouldn't even touch a dead body. They thought it was cursed, or something was wrong with it or something. Well,
Yeah, he was a
this
man of many sciences. Like he was
he
into mechanics, he was into
he he could
chemistry,
he could
everything.
write with both hands, left
Mhm.
and right at the same
I've
time.
been studying him for years. I can't believe he came up 3 times tonight. Well, yes, I can now.
Wow, ain't that?
I
But
even
maybe there's
named my
something.
my pit bull's name was Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow,
Uh-huh.
we're gonna have to do a show on that guy. But no, it was interesting how he could. Why was he so far ahead? And the thing is when they didn't have all that government control, he could invent things. He invented mechanical robots and a mechanical lion, and
The
he did
bull, remember? Yeah, it
the
was a
bull. Yeah,
lion
lion. It was a
or a
lion,
horse.
and no, and he invented a knight and a lion that I read. But anyway, the point is, nowadays, if you invent something that they don't want you to invent, or you don't sell to a corporation, say, when we're talking about gas, who was it? Pa Joe said he's got a Volkswagen Jetta diesel, gets 60 miles a gallon. Yeah, but you know what?
Mhm.
They're not gonna. They had the technology. Go back there, get the car. No, we're going to move forward with a 20 mile an hour or 20, we're going to say it's a new invention. We can get 35 miles a gallon with this car. No, we already had it. We passed it by. If you invent something, what will happen to you?
Well, see, that's the lesson that I guess we should learn is, if you do manage to invent something, keep it to yourself and or only within your own community, and don't try to actually patent it or make any money off of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. These guys that have invented cars that got 300 miles a gallon and then they disappear, but yet the government can do the same darn thing to their equipment, and it's all good. But soon as that situation's over, that equipment gets trashed. That's how they won World War II with the tanks. Vapor
you look
gas.
Speaking of powering cars, if you look into the Joe cell, as it's known, it's a very simple contraption that runs a car off hydrogen based on input of ordinary tap water. That's it. Because because the electric current breaks up the water, which has sodium hydroxide in it, makes it give off more hydrogen, and that powers the engine. And you can do that to any car.
Wow. Yeah. But why aren't we driving hydrogen cars yet? I mean, they talk about them a lot, but yeah,
Hindenburg, scary.
Yeah.
The hydrogen car is actually one of the most economical, environmentally conscious things you could ever have. But the fear of the Hindenburg is just going to keep pushing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. There's a lot of explosive power behind that.
Yeah, I've played around with hydrogen, and yes, it does make a nasty explosion. But acetylene makes even more of an explosion.
Exactly. That's the truth right there. Is the thing we're using that everyone uses is far more dangerous than hydrogen, and hydrogen can be used safely. But again, it's cheap, it's easy. Every house could make it. Even with sunlight, you could have sunlight making the hydrogen, to store it in a tank and put it in the car. There's actually a way that someone actually was designing it in the 90s, and it was stopped quickly for some reason.
Yeah. Well, look at it this way. Speaking of things like solar panels, the average on Earth's surface, every square meter when there's sun out gets about 1,800 watts per square meter of sunlight. But most of those solar panels only get about 100. If you want really efficient solar panels, you'd have to pay about $1 million per square inch, which is allegedly the ones that NASA uses on their Mars rover, which can process like 100% of that energy coming in. So if you had a solar panel that was as efficient as NASA's, you could power a typical house with just 8 square meters of solar panels, which is nothing, which is 8 square meters. That's the size of a walk-in closet.
Wow. But it would cost you a fortune.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, the solar panels that are commercially available are basically crap, and most of them don't even last the 20 years that they're prorated for, but only 10 years.
Truth. That's the truth.
And plus, like the battery storage technology lags way behind, like even the solar panel technology, and it only covers about 1% of the requirements of any existing solar installation, because that's why they have the tie-in with the grid. If you could invent a better system of power storage, even let's say a mechanical one using, let's say, water tanks for small scale, generating power through turbines and pumping water back up, then there's got to be a better way, in other words. And, don't tell me that our science is deadlocked on this, yet we have the ability to affect the weather and mind control the vast members of the population and stuff like that. They have the technology. They're just not making it public.
Well, speaking of control, Joe Sapien asked, could the Hindenburg have been a setup, meaning that it was used to make people fear stepping forward with hydrogen technology? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, that would have been far future thinking, but you never know, because right after the Hindenburg, they kind of stopped all those dirigibles and that was the end of it. And then the airplane came along and it was airplane travel.
Yeah, even though dirigible travel is much more efficient, because
Yeah.
once you overcome the air resistance and you're up there, it's basically the same thing as moving it at sea.
Yep.
And that's why sea travel is so inexpensive. So if you could, instead of using hydrogen, let's say they don't want to use hydrogen anymore, you substitute helium for it,
Mhm.
then I can't see why it's not become commercially viable, because
Well, but that's the thing. Maybe he's right. Back in what was it, 30, 39 or 35 or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly which time it was, but it was right around that time. That's when airplanes were just getting in. Wouldn't it have been to the airplane industry's benefit to destroy one of those in a big horrific boom
Yeah,
and
and
then
plus
make everybody fear going on? I wouldn't want to go on one. Oh my God, it's going to blow up.
it was also symbolic, because that was right before the war, and don't forget it was named the Hindenburg after Paul von Hindenburg, who was the guy who signed the enabling acts that enabled Hitler to take control over Germany.
Yes.
So it was their like symbolic attack on German Nazism.
Yeah. Well, like I said, is that what ushered in the airplane? Because after that, everybody took airplanes and,
Mhm.
Pan Am and so forth and so on. And of course, the war wouldn't have been anything. Diane, it looks like
I
you're on
was
your.
gonna say, whatever happened to the Concorde? Like we were going to Europe like in a matter of hours. Whatever happened to that? Why'd they stop that? Did you ever think
Good
about that?
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
I
question.
don't have an answer, but it's a question.
Yeah, where
I
you
know
could.
it was
You
too
do?
expensive. There weren't enough people who could afford to be on the plane. They were actually going in a deficit. They were actually losing money from
Oh,
flying
okay.
it.
Yeah,
It was
it was
expensive to
really
fly.
expensive. Yeah, I've never
But
been
they
on the
have the
Concorde.
technology.
100% of technology, and why couldn't they make we're going to deficit? Let's find a way to, rather than having empty seats, let's make them cheaper and like less of a deficit. Let's figure. No, it was like we're losing money. We're not selling our seats. Just end it. That's how they did it, rather than thinking forward and going, okay, how can we sell these seats? Can we figure out a way?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's just like,
it used to cost like $10,000 to get from New York to London on the
But
Concorde.
that's what we've been told. I don't believe
Mhm.
it.
yeah. But and then again, we've been told that, well, we can't go back to the moon because we just lost all that
I know,
information.
right?
Well, it's the truth. That's what they said. We
I know.
lost it.
Bon Petit.
And-
Yeah.
It was an accident. It was
Yeah.
destroyed by accident.
Same with destroying all the telemetry data, because they recorded Monday Night Football over those tapes and whatnot. Even though those were like the huge old tapes that were like 1 3/4 inches wide.
It's
It's so funny. I listened to Michael Jaco a lot, and he said when he was in the military and all that stuff, that the technology they were using then in the Air Force,
69 to
right,
72.
whatever they were
Mhm.
like 25 years ahead of what we're being shown to the public. They
Mhm.
were 25 years ahead. The military is 25 years ahead of the public.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's true. The military's ahead, and it's just like now, if you people have been studying out there, and I hope you all do. I know our show's been pretty interesting, and there's 15 of you in chat, probably more of you going to listen later. But the point is that they've been working on a digital currency, just like up in Canada. I know there's a few of you that are from Canada up there that are listening. Max Vision, he's in the house, got a show in about 15 minutes, or
Hi, Max.
actually 5. And he was talking about that thing they just passed, C11 or something like that, or whatever it was. 111, maybe it was 111. Anyway, that censors all of everything pretty much. And that's coming to the States here too. It's a censorship bill to weed out all those people who are telling lies, but it's going to censor everybody. It's a blanket thing. It's like any place else. One guy, like when I'm at work, one guy didn't clean his truck up. Now everybody's got to be inspected, to make sure you're cleaning your truck, like, or whatever. It's like, come on, he was a dirty slob anyway. You
Well, look
should
at
have
it
seen
this
that
way.
right off the bat.
Yeah, first of all, I'm not sure I believe that they're actually going to go through with implementing a global CBDC because, that would take away so much profitable business from the currency trade because literally the largest market in the world is the trade between two currencies, and that's the United States dollar and the euro. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of big actors making big money on it every single day. The amount of transactions that happen in one day is equivalent to like all the stock and bond transactions in a month and a half worldwide,
Mhm.
just in exchanging dollars for euros and euros for dollars. So if
Mhm.
there was a global currency, these people wouldn't be making the kind of money that they're making right now. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be afraid of any of that.
I don't know the way they're talking. They said they're implementing it as starting in July, and by
Well,
December we'll all be using it.
I'll
It's
believe it
hard.
when I see it.
Well, I know it's hard to believe, but then again, I also said, well, we'll never see everybody walking around with a mask on now, would we?
Well,
And
if
look what
they see
happened.
on the flip side, if you were to try to pull off that mask thing again, I think there would be a mass rebellion because people saw through it the first time, except now the resistance against it is a lot more cogent and a lot more organized than
Yes.
people have their arguments in place, that it's not going to fly the second time around. I just
No,
hope
no, not. It's only a lot of these things I think they do for tests,
yeah.
and this was a test on a major scale, just like the money thing. But they digitalized money in China and India and all these other places. I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not so sure that it's going to be
Well,
impossible.
I don't think. See, I find that very hard to believe because to use a digital currency, you have to at least have a digital device of some kind, like a mobile phone. And a lot of these
Mhm.
people in these third world countries, like let's say India, they're they're not that educated, not that smart because like I collect coins. The one rupee coin has a hand on it going like this. The two rupee coin has a hand on it going like this. Okay, that in other words, no, I don't really see that as reality.
Yeah, I don't either, but I I wouldn't at this point in time, I wouldn't put it past them. Especially when they're spending the only reason I can think of it is so if they inflate our money so badly that you would be carrying a wheelbarrow full of cash around to
Mhm.
eliminate that from everybody's mind. Well, now we got digital currency and you carry it around in a little here's your card, just swipe your card. Oh, that milk was $40. You don't care
Oh,
because, well, it's just like Europe. You're buying gas in liters,
mhm.
and here we buy it in gallons. And
Yeah,
we're
and
we're all
it's
like, oh my God, it's $4 a gallon. You're over there paying $4 a liter.
yeah, almost. Yeah. I mean, yeah, except well, it's not that bad. It's like 1.7 euros per liter. And you got like 4 liters
Oh,
to the gallon. But see, it's
yeah.
like a lot of big plans that don't go through. Like, for example, the longest time they were scaring us in Czech Republic or in
Mhm.
Prague that they were going to hold the Olympics there.
Yeah.
So everybody was scared of it because they know what a disaster that is.
Hmm.
Going into debt for 40 years, all that shit. And so they did a feasibility study. That feasibility study cost 700 million crowns, like
Gee.
$30 million. Okay. And the feasibility study essentially said, no, we can't do it in Prague because it's an ancient city. You can't build like all these new venues, stadiums, all this bullshit. And they wound up not doing it. But in the interim, they scared a lot of people, and they also fueled a huge rise in like speculative buying of like empty fields and wastelands and stuff like that in and around Prague. So, maybe that was the effect.
Yeah,
Maybe that was the intended effect, to
maybe it
create
was.
the panic, to drive up property prices so that the holders of these properties could unload them on the cheap, on the
Yeah,
upside.
it could be.
Problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the expected reaction might not be in the intended reaction.
Yeah.
It's it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We had what 2 years of unexpected and unexpected reaction there with a lot of things, and
Yeah.
It makes you wonder and look at people differently, because some people caved to it, some people didn't, some people were against it. Some people fought the system, some people didn't care one
And
way or the other.
And the end
Yeah.
result was something they never could have foreseen, and that was even among the vaxxed. It's a mass mistrust of the organized medical system,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is
A lot
highly
were
justified.
forced. A lot were forced to be vaccinated.
Granted,
I was one of those people who were forced vaxxed, and I did work with people who left the company rather than getting the vax. They had no choice and they left, and they're actually doing better than expected. But
Mhm.
because some companies, although the government was supposedly going to implement something, they never did, and the companies will wait till that day. So,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that was something that should have never happened. The forced vaccination should never happen. They should have made it so selective, so it was hard to get, so people would go after it if they really wanted everyone to get vaccinated. Make it something just out of reach.
Yeah,
Then we'd be
yeah,
give it. I want it. And they go, okay, we'll have some more have it. No,
they were
forced
trying that.
vaccinations
They were
Yeah.
trying to at the beginning when
at the very beginning, exactly. And then
yeah,
they decided, no, we weren't selling enough. So government, make it forced. That's what happened.
Yeah, at the beginning they were spreading stories about like rich people cutting in line for the vax and paying
yep.
it, thousands of dollars to get it
Mhm.
before everybody else and all this.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Oh
I
yeah,
wouldn't,
yeah.
I wouldn't use that word on YouTube though.
Yeah.
I would do this
Yeah,
instead.
we gotta be a
Yeah.
little careful, but
Well,
I think they've moved on from some of that now, and
yeah,
they're
I
on to
never,
other, bigger, better things, and
Yeah,
we
they
gotta,
have.
like,
I'm pleased to say I never got it, never took the shot, but I know one of my friends, he took only the first dose, and even from that one first dose, he was having problems. But the most amount of people that have the most amount of problems are the ones who took 2 doses or 3.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
mhm.
It's interesting here in New Jersey, we didn't have the same amount of people not doing well from it. So I think a lot of the states that were like New York, New Jersey, I don't think we got as much of the bad stuff.
Mhm.
Because I know somebody who owns a funeral parlor in Lodi, and they're not that busy. And we're in the Midwest, and they're having more, so I think it was selective. And I think we can just pray for those people, and that's all we can do. And the people that did, just be there for them. And there's a lot of solutions out there with, we all know in the truther community, there's a lot of good things that we can do for ourselves that will keep us healthy.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, damn
That's
straight.
the girls' perspective tonight.
Absolutely. It's very much appreciative. Diane, can you tell us a little bit about this picture that you've got back there a little bit there? It's been sitting there all night, and it's really pretty, and I'm sure we're all wondering what that is. And
It's the one I'm working on now. And I've been doing a lot of these angelic beings, and it's a watercolor. And I do light language, and it has to do, I've been working on this for a while, has to do with the chakras and the heart energy, the green. And the orange down here is our creative process, the orange and the reds. And it just comes in as I'm doing it with the light language, and I don't always decipher the light language, but it's an energy that when you see it, let's see if we can bring it up close. When you see it, it activates your dormant DNA. And
Interesting.
they come in slowly, and there's just messages to just from visualizing it to activating your DNA, like the one in the blue. Where's my blue? There we go. Blue. So these are
That's
something
definitely
Pardon me?
psychedelic, and that's definitely psychedelic, and it brings about a state of consciousness reminiscent of alpha. But you know what it reminds me of at first glance? From the Voynich manuscript,
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I
right?
don't know what that is.
The
Oh,
Voynich-
Yeah, look in, that's a very
Yep.
mysterious book.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, they-
they come in like today after we talk. It's like 11 o'clock, but it's Saturday, so I'll go home and paint. I'm home,
Mhm.
but I'll go and paint. And I don't think, like, sometimes I have a hard time talking, but and it comes in, and I don't know where it comes in, and
you're channeling.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
what
channeled,
I
obviously.
channel,
Yeah.
and I feel like when I teach yoga therapy, that after a session I want to do these sessions with people so they can draw and color afterwards, so it activates their chakras, brings them messages that are for them. And like you're saying, Delbor, I'm sorry, is that how-
Dalibor, yeah.
that when you see them, it is what it is for you. It is what it is for Robert. It is what it is for Lucky, and all you folks in the chat. Like, it'll give you a message that you'll intuit, and that's for you to decipher. And maybe
Mhm.
next week you get a different message, and that's fine.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's from here to the body, and there's no words. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Wow.
I totally resonate with that. And why? Because see, my father's an artist, and he was a stay-at-home dad when I was a little kid, where we were kids, and he basically raised us, and he paints a lot, even though he's was mostly a photographer.
Okay.
Mhm.
But yeah,
So this is the newest one. I just actually, I'm gonna be in an art exhibit online. I'll share the link with you, Robert, if you want to. I don't have it right now,
Mhm.
but the exhibit starts Monday, and I entered 4 pieces, and the name of the show was called The Power of Color, because my stuff's very colorful, and
Mhm.
I feel like I've always felt that there are more colors for us to see, but we haven't seen them yet.
Mhm.
agreed.
So, yeah, so it's called The Power of Color, and color is healing. I do my work is to heal people just from looking at it. And whatever you get from it, you get. And I have a story behind everything that I write. I have lots of things. And my website, I'll put my website in the chat, in our chat. And yeah, some of my newer stuff's not on it because I haven't kept up on my website, honestly. But yeah, it's meant to heal the planet.
I like it.
I
Thank
like
you.
it. I didn't
Mhm.
realize that there was all of little things there, but that's all like hidden in there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
then sometimes you see images within the images, and that's
Mhm.
it. Like, it is what it is for you. Like, somebody will say, "Oh, I see a duck." Okay, so
Mhm.
maybe you should go look up a duck and see what the spiritual meaning is of a duck, or a butterfly, or. But I've been painting a lot of these angelic things in all my art lately,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I think we have things coming in that are, like I said to Lucky earlier, like, what do you think of interdimensionality? So thank you for asking.
Well, it's all right. I mean, I like it. We all got something to learn. It's all out there, and it brings up a lot of things, and it's all cool. It's all cool. I love it. I love it. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Remember, tomorrow, I will be on Nina the Mystic's show, or on her channel, and we'll be doing more spiritual science. So join me over there. We're going to try to finish up that book either this time or the next, but we're going to hit it hard. She's in the chat. Nina, you want to put a link in there?
And I love Agnost. I love him.
Hey, yeah, Aggie's
I'm friends
awesome.
with him he's friends with Laura Eisenhower, and so he's great. He's awesome.
He is. He's real good. He sometimes joins us in chat. and he's been on the show a few times. And
Yeah, I've seen
Nina's-
him on Rex Bear's show. Yeah.
yeah. So Nina's got a good connection with him. So I want to give a little shout out to everybody who's been here tonight, everybody from Max Vision who's starting his show now. So after we get done here, you can head on over there and do some remote viewing and get your mind all programmed and good to go. Anyway,
Thank you for having me.
oh, hey, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Mary Wins is in the house. Nina the Mystic. Pa Joe Sapien. He made it on time this time. Jargo. Scotty Boy as always. And I hope he's got his pants on. But Pamela Jean was in the house telling us about the insect people who live under the ground and aliens that live and Amber Dawn, she's listening. She's been busy, but thank you for coming. Let's see who else here. And
Mark
Grandpa
the Arc
Brian.
Spark.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Mark the Arc Spark is in the house. And Grandpa Brian, who watched most of the show and then he had to go to bed because I'm sure he was planting in his garden, along with Delaney Pearl Jones, who's here, and Gaza Cavs stopped by from Gaza Cavs' backyard and all the way from Australia to catch us here alive tonight. And with that, I want to say we got some really good books coming up. I just got, Delabor, you will appreciate this one here. It's a limited edition of Astral Projection.
Cool.
And it's was it number 200 it's a 222 or
It's like a signed limited edition.
yeah, 212. There was only like
212. That's the area code for New York City.
oh man. Yeah, there's only
for
like
Manhattan.
300 of them
that's-
made.
Yeah, that's the area code for Manhattan, and that's also the room I used to always stay at in this one particular town when I used to go there on business.
Oh wow.
212. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of similarities tonight going on. I think it's because isn't there a full moon tonight or something?
Yesterday at 1:34
Oh.
Eastern time.
And that's right. And you
Mhm.
got to plant your potatoes on a full moon. And I did that today. So I hope I caught it.
I just put my email, my website in the YouTube chat because I have it.
Oh, you
on-
did?
I'll have a look
Okay,
at
good.
it.
Good deal. Good deal.
have it on the
If
other-
not, I will put it on the description a little later and we'll have that there. But I want to thank you all for coming and joining me tonight. It's been great. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. We got to do this again soon. Thank you all for coming. Lucky, thank
Yep.
you. Delabor, thank you. And Diane, thank you. We'll see you all again. Good night, everybody. And remember,
Night.
go out,
Thank
do
you.
something nice for everybody. Be the frequency you want to receive. Love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Om Shanti.
And there we go. Another show in the bag.